My name is Sydney Silvestre. I am a senior policy analyst at the Open Technology Institute at New America. And today I'm going to talk to you about privacy. I thought about then changing it to AI just to meet the moment, but decided not to. You've probably heard of the concept of the privacy paradox, the idea that people say they care about privacy, but their actions suggest otherwise. The framing assumes that we have meaningful choices over how our data is used. Spoiler alert, we don't. A key reason the deck is stacked this way is because the value of using data judiciously is absent from most cost-benefit frameworks. Economic valuation could change that dynamic, much as it has done for other policy areas with complex trade-offs. I'm not here to argue that privacy is anything other than a fundamental right, which I firmly believe, and that should be enough for regulating it as it is. But in practice, what we often see is that when it comes to a trade-off between data use and privacy, data use often wins. It's not because people don't care, but the true privacy paradox, in my opinion, is that the system never properly valued the many benefits of privacy. But what if we... So let's take a closer look at why so often privacy in that trade-off loses. Many policies could improve privacy, whether that's a stricter security standard, limits on tracking, or rules against the sale of personal data. The problem is that the cost of enabling that is very easy to measure, and most organizations can then point to it. As many people in this room may or may not know, I'm sure you do if you've ever worked on privacy, the second we start talking about privacy protections, we hear from companies that it is too expensive and that it'll mean that it'll cut into their profit, whether that's from hiring more engineers or using something like privacy-enhancing technologies, or more often than not being able to use the data to drive their profits. The benefits, autonomy, trust, reduced risk and harm, are much harder to see, more diffuse because they impact more people, and critically, very difficult to quantify. This is a classic example of an externality. The true costs and benefits of privacy aren't fully captured in the market or company balance sheets, and those very costs and benefits fall on society, not the decision makers. But because policymakers are often respond more reliably to numbers than they do to stories, as many of us also know, privacy routinely continues to get undervalued. It doesn't have to be this way. Okay, we're going in the right direction, which is great. So quantifying previously invisible impacts does actually transform policy. The social cost of carbon revolutionized how we address climate change and environmental harms. The value of statistical life reshaped workplace and transportation safety. They weren't small tweaks, but they really enabled action where debate alone had failed. Enumeration works because it makes the invisible visible. It reveals hidden costs, benefits, shifts incentives, and unlocks better decisions at scale. Valuing privacy leads us to evaluating data more accurately. I don't necessarily mean that we need to attach a singular number to privacy, but more that we need a rigorous but flexible framework that can help us understand when data use is a net positive and when it's not. The baseline assumption in our data-driven economy is that more data is better. I contend that that's actually not true, and oftentimes more data is not even better, it's not even the best. People don't want to actually feel surveilled. And I think that a lot of times we've seen this in various literature, that the idea that we're getting a net benefit from this is not actually borne out by evidence. So what we can do here is really be a lot more precise about which data truly matters and for what. So what would a systematic approach to valuing privacy look like? At a high level, there are many key factors. I've thought about this a lot. I'm very happy to talk about it more, but since I don't have 20 minutes to talk about it, we'll just highlight a couple. So the type of data, we feel differently about our health data or financial data than we do, say, our Netflix browsing data. Maybe you don't, that's up to you. But we would take those type of metrics into account. We would also think about who holds the data, who sees it. I feel more comfortable about a trusted institution using my data than I do about some data broker selling it to a third party and having no control over that. The risk associated with disclosure, again, this is where the sensitivity comes into play. That also being said, we would be able with this framework to allow for the fact that all data in aggregate can become more sensitive. So something that might have been innocuous in the past becomes something that is more sensitive in the future. By weighing all of these different elements systematically, using methods like stated and revealed preferences, natural experiments, which are all things that have been used in other economic disciplines, we can assign values that clarify even the toughest ethical trade-offs in data use and deter misuse. This isn't about replacing legal rights or privacy protections. It's more about informing a clear apples-to-apples approach, supplementing a right-based framework where we do keep that at the core, and then we can center what's better for all of us. I think that data that allows us to cure cancer, that makes college possible for all children and closes some educational equity gaps, that might prevent the loss of life, or even tells me when I actually do need to wear 3 scarves, as I have recently, that type of information should be treated slightly differently than, say, Uber's ability to access my precise information at any given moment so that I can use that to determine how they can squeeze the most money out of surge pricing. I don't know, just a thought. Treating it differently can allow us to have this more flexible approach, and I think also would mean people trust data use more than they currently do, where we take this like complete dragnet approach to it. The beauty of this framework is that while it's really complicated to get to, once you have it, it's simple to apply, embraces a lot of gray zone and nuance, and is also very actionable. We would use this more in the regulatory process, but it has a ton of knock-on effects as well. People always say that they want a framework. This is a way to develop a framework towards something that I think more people would want to see, which is the regulation of data use. Crucially, this approach doesn't come with a predetermined outcome. So if you actually think that we should be using more data, this also allows for that. Sometimes it'll justify stronger privacy protections, and other times they may show that actually in this specific case, we should not be using this data. And the goal is to move away from subjective guesses to a methodical, evidence-based framework where weighing trade-offs better clarifies the harms, better clarify the benefits, who is impacted, and most critically, the appropriate intervention. So then it becomes not just a tool for measurement, but one for governance as well. So I haven't answered what privacy work. You might think that from what I've said that I value it very highly. I do. What I think can happen too with this framework is that we can all start to value it more, and then therefore we'll have knock-on effects of how we use data, and we can actually start building technology that is truly in the public interest. I have a brief on this if you would like to read it, and also would welcome any type of discussion on this. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks.